Aloha everyone, we are convening the Committee on Transportation for the purposes of a hearing for our 10:30 a.m. agenda on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. We have one bill on the agenda to be heard and subsequent decision making on, well actually two bills, and then we have subsequent decision making on a couple measures that were deferred for decision making on last week Thursday's agenda. First up, we have SB 588 relating to excessive noise. I believe the only testifier we have is our Department of Transportation Director.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Todd, Vice Chair Kila, and members. And sticking with DOT, stand in support. Thank you.
Solid. Members, do you have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Actually, that is it.
That is it.
Okay, it's just decision making. I was a little confused there. Okay. We're going to recess very briefly, and then we'll reconvene for decision making. Okay. Aloha, we are reconvening our Committee on Transportation for the purposes of decision making on our 10:30 a.m. agenda, and also we have a few other pieces of legislation from last week that we're going to be deciding on. So for the first measure, we have today's SB 588, Senate Draft 2. The Chair's recommendation is to move this forward as an HD1, just redefecting the date to June 30th, 3000. And if there are any, technical amendments necessary, we'll include those also. Okay. Members, do you have any questions or comments?
Chair, I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I voted no on the House companion, so I'll be doing the same thing with this bill.
Okay, that's fair.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, if not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on SB 588 SD2, the chair recommendation is to pass as with amendments. Chair voting aye, Vice Chair voting no. Representative Ayu.
Aye.
Representative Eslin.
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto.
Aye.
Representative Kitagawa.
Aye.
Representative Martin.
Aye.
Representative Onishi.
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have SB 824, which is relating to mooring lines. It's a little bit messy right now, and there is a compromise being worked on, but the stakeholders involved have not come to an agreement. So our plan is, or my recommendation is to move this forward with a effective date of June 30th, 3000. But we will be inserting language into the committee report that the Consumer Protection Committee should look closely at the testimony provided by the Public Utilities Commission and try to find a compromise that does not add cost to consumers, because that seems to be the crux of things right now, is trying to work out some language where any cost is not really borne by Hawaii's residents. And I'm hoping that they can find something, but we're going to give them a little bit of time to work on that, and they haven't quite figured it out yet. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Okay. Brett Martin?
Yeah, my concern with this bill is that it's written to protect certain union workers, possibly at the expense of other unions, and I don't want to play favorite with any unions, so I'll be voting no. with an open mind for that compromise.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would note that I did speak to the union in question, and they believe that they've worked some of these things out, but I don't think it's been made clear in our committee, so I'm hopeful that they are able to make that clear and get everyone on board in future committees, so that's reasonable. Okay, anything else? Rep. Onishi?
Chair, I also have the similar concern that you had in talking about the additional costs to the consumer,
Right.
whether it is the people that are transporting goods or the end consumer who has to pay the cost of that higher price
Sure.
for the services. So with that, I'll be voting at this point with reservations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, anything else? Okay, if not, Vice Chair for the vote on SB 824.
Sorry, Chair. Voting on SB 824 SD2, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye, noting the presence of all members and noting the no vote from Representative Martin. Are there any members choosing to wish to vote no? Any members choosing to vote with reservations? Chair, your
We do have Rep. Onishi.
oh, Rep.
Yeah.
Onishi, reservations. Any other members? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to SB 809, which is a measure we heard last week Thursday. This one, there are a handful of amendments, so our recommendation is gonna be to move this forward with the following amendments. We're gonna move sections 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 into a new part 4, just for clarity's sake. We're gonna be reducing the additional assistance rebate from 40% to 20% for the retail cost of the electric bicycle, electric moped, or electric micro mobility device, or $250 from the $500, which was in the previous amount, whichever amount is lower. So basically, we're gonna cut that in half, because that's the part that's not means tested. But we are gonna leave the means tested amount intact, which is up to a maximum of $1,000. Basically providing a greater gap between those who will need the assistance and those who could apply but are not in that means tested category. In addition, the issue of public safety, particularly on sidewalks, was raised last week. So there are some guiding things within statute, specifically around like bicycles and that sort of thing, but we want the Department of Transportation to provide some clarity in the next hearing in the Finance Committee, provided that it gets a hearing, specifically around these electric micro mobility devices, and maybe providing some clarity in your testimony so that that could potentially get ironed out, especially if we're gonna see more and more of these electrified mobility devices. Maybe we need to rework some things, so I'm hoping you could provide some assistance in that, and we'll include some language in the committee report to reflect that. In addition, we're just gonna also note in the committee report that under section 291145G, it does clarify that bicycles equipped with a motor are not permitted on any sidewalk. So just kind of reaffirm that in the committee report, and ask the Finance Committee to determine whether the appropriations for fiscal year 22-23 are necessary, and if so, to insert the appropriate constitutional language relating to emergency appropriations, which would be necessary for passage and implementation. But it's kind of beyond my scope to do that here in this committee. We're also going to be inserting a effective date of June 30th, 3000, and including any technical amendments needed for clarity and consistency. I know that was a lot. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, if not, Rep. Kilo.
Voting on SB 809 SD2, the Chair's recommendation is pass with amendments, noting the presence of all members. Any members choosing to vote with reservations? Any members choosing to vote no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And lastly, we have SB 1506, Senate Draft 2, which is the Safe Routes Program. My plan is to replace a lot of this with the House Draft, which is the companion, which is for HB 1418, HD1, which is basically just a straight appropriation. I will note in the committee report that if this were to resurface down the road in the Finance Committee or in conference, that we want to provide some clarity around the use of the word, keiki and kapuna, and not being strictly in those two categories, that this is just kind of everyone. Yeah, exactly. Keiki to kapuna model. So we want to make sure that we're inclusive. And I do want to clarify that it's not necessarily my intent to make sure that this is just an appropriation and I'm gonna be unyielding on that. But I do want to provide a different model in case this working group model or committee ends up being too much for certain decision makers within the House and Senate in the future. I do want to provide an option that's a straight appropriation, provided that we can't quite get the whole piece through. But we can potentially work that out on conference. Okay, members, do you have any questions or comments? If not, then they vote on SB 1506.
Sorry, I'm getting my life together.
All good, all good. We all are, don't worry.
There it is. Thank you, Chair. Voting on SB 1506, SB2, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the presence of all members, any members choosing to vote no, any members choosing to vote reservations, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.